Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are doing something a little bit different, and honestly, I am incredibly excited about it.
I am too.
We usually tackle these big, heavy topics, tech trends, history, science, the things that are shaping our actual reality. But today, we are stepping into a world that feels familiar, but we're looking at it through a completely new lens. We're going to the realm of high fantasy.
Right. But before anyone tunes out thinking we're just going to recount the plot of a dragon-slaying movie or, I don't know, argue about which magic sword is statistically better, that is absolutely not what we're doing today.
No.
We are looking at the logistics. We are stripping away the romance, the ballads, the slow-motion montages, and we're looking at the sociology, the economics, and the weird, gritty reality of living in a world with magic and monsters.
Exactly. I mean, we always hear about the final blow to the dragon or the coronation of the king, but I want to know about the payroll. I want to know about the supply chain of a dungeon crawl.
Yes.
I want to know the chemical composition of the potion you just chugged without looking at the label. What's in that?
It's the infrastructure of glory. That's what it is. And we have, I think, a fascinating stack of sources today to pick through.
An amazing stack. Just run us through what we're looking at.
Okay, so we have municipal accounts from a place called Fairhaven Crossing, which we'll get into. We have court logs from the Kingdom of Redmont. We also have a very, very detailed journal from a rural apothecary.
My favorite.
It's incredible. Then there's a scandal report from the Sword Mountains involving a goblin-run resort, of all, and a financial case study on basically gig economy from the Arachide dungeon.
It's a massive stack.
Yeah.
So lay it out to us. What is the mission here? What are we trying to figure out by looking at all?
The mission really is to deconstruct the hero's journey and look at it as a job, as a profession. We want to analyze the gig economy of questing, the actual science, pseudoscience of alchemy versus just waving your hands and saying magic.
Right.
And even the environmental impact of industrial in a fantasy set. We're asking the big question, how does this world actually function when the epic music stops?
I love that. Okay, so let's jump right into our first case study, Fairhaven Cross. Now, reading through the source material, this place feels like the quintessential level 1 village. It's where you go to get your start.
It absolutely.
But looking closely at the description, it's not just a backdrop for the story. It's a functioning ecosystem.
It really is. And location is everything. That's the first thing that jumps out from the wreck. Fairhaven Crossing sits right at the intersection of two major trade routes. And that is not an accident.
No, historically, that's how civilization starts, right?
That's exactly it. You have commerce, you have travelers coming through, and because of that, you have conflict, you have opportunity. There's this great detail in the source, the town sign. It says Fairhaven Crossing, and underneath, someone has graffitied mostly peaceful.
Mostly peaceful.
Yeah.
That tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it?
It really does.
It implies a history of trouble, a history of conflict, but one that the community manages with a bit of dark humor. It's like a disclaimer for tourists.
Precise. It signals that, while yes, commerce happens here, safety isn't guaranteed. And that's the niche that adventurers fill. And because it's a hub, the economy isn't just based on gold. Crucial. It's based on reputation.
Oh.
We see this notice board culture described in the town logs. It's essentially a decentralized job market for freelance. You show up, you look at the board, and you pick up a gig. It's like Upwork for adventurers.
It is. It's the gig economy in a fantasy world. And just like the real gig economy, you have these key figures who act as the network nodes, the people who really run things.
Yes, the influencers.
Right. You have Martyr Sweetbread, who's the baker, but really he's the town gossip. He knows everyone. You have Gareth, the innkeeper, who's basically the central information broker. He hears everything.
And then you have Edith Moonwhisper.
Oh, she's a great character.
She's fantastic. She's this retired, high-level adventurer who's now acting as a mentor to the newcomer. It's a support network. It shows that this isn't just a free-for-all. There's a structure to how you succeed here.
Okay, so let's look at the actual work then. Our protagonist in this account, they pick up a job that seems, on paper, laughable. It's called the cat in the well incident.
Sounds so mundane. A little girl, Leia Thornfield, needs her cat, Whiskers, rescued from a well. The reward is 2 silver.
2 silver pieces. That is not buying you a castle.
No.
That's barely buying you a round of drinks at Garrett's Inn.
Sure.
So why take it? What's the point?
This is the crucial economic lesson of the first level. You aren't doing it for the capital. You are absolutely not. You are doing it for the credit score.
A credit score.
You're doing it for local fame. If you save the cat, the village trusts. The baker gives you a nod. The little girl's family tells everyone how wonderful you are. And if the village trusts you, then they give you the contract for the bandit raid, which pays significantly better.
So it's a loss leader. You take a loss on the cat to gain the client loyalty for the much bigger bandit contract.
You are building a portfolio. Exactly that. But here's where it gets really interesting and, frankly, ridiculous. The job seems mundane. Get cat out of well. But the well is deep. The stone sides are slick with moss. You can't just climb down.
So you need a tool for the job.
You need magic. Specifically, the records state it requires a levitation scroll.
Okay, and our hero doesn't have one.
Of course not. They're just starting out. And this leads to a massive, almost comical escalation. The protagonist doesn't have the spell, but who does? Cornelius Grimold, the local high-level wizard who lives in a tower on the edge.
So the logical next step is you go and you buy the scroll from him.
You would think.
Yeah.
But the town records are very clear about Cornelius. He's a hoarder, he's a recluse, he collects magical items and knowledge, but refuses to help the community. He won't sell, he won't trade, he won't even answer the door.
So, logically, to save a cat for 2 silver pieces, our hero decides they have to rob a high-level wizard.
The heist logic is impeccable, though, when you think about it. And this introduces a really interesting ethical debate that's actually recorded in the narrative. Edith Moonwhisper, the mentor, she actually justifies the theft.
She does. How?
She argues that because Cornelius is hoarding knowledge and power and actively refusing to aid the community he lives in, then liberating a single scroll for a good cause saving a child's pet isn't a crime. It's a redistribution of this.
It's that classic chaotic good alignment in action. I'm breaking the law, but I'm doing it to do the right thing.
Exact. So they decide to go through with it, and they team up with another character, a bard named Jasper Gold, to break into the wizard's tower.
And obviously they can't go through the front door because of the wards you mentioned.
Right. It's magically.
Yeah.
So they find another way in. They go through the abandoned crypts beneath the wizard's tower.
Which brings us to the tactical breakdown of the first real dungeon crawl. And I love this part because it isn't just hit it with your sword until it dies. The source material gives us a very specific description of what it feels like to fight spectral wraiths.
It's so good.
The protagonist tries to slice them with a sword, and the sensation is described as cutting through cold honey.
I found that description so visceral. It's brilliant. It's not hitting armor. It's not hitting flesh. It's this sluggish, supernatural resistance. It implies a kind of density to the spirit that we don't usually think about.
Right, like it's there, it has substance, but not in a way that a sword is really designed to handle.
Exactly, and this is where the class synergy comes in, the teamwork. The fighter can physically disrupt the form, but they can't really damage or dispel the spirit. That's where Jasper, the bard, he uses music.
And it's not just like playing a cool tune to pump them up for battle.
No, the source is specific. The music actually soothes and distracts spirit, calms their anguish. It's psychological warfare against the undead.
Yeah.
He's not fighting them, he's de-escalating them with a lute.
It's amazing. And we have to talk about the preparation for this, the dark side potion.
Yeah.
Before they go into the crypts, they stop by the general store run by a dwarf named Strick, and they buy this potion. It costs 8 silver pieces.
Which, by the way, is 4 times the reward for the entire cat-saving quest.
They're going into debt to rescue this cat.
Another lost leader. They are spending their own money to build their reputation. They're literally paying out of pocket to be heroes. It's a startup, and they're burning through their seed capital.
I just love that. But the detail about the potion that I really loved was the taste. It's described in the journal as being minty and sweet.
Right.
We always imagine these potions tasting like, I don't know, swamp water or old medicine. But apparently, night vision tastes like peppermint schnapps.
Which makes sense from a product design standpoint. If you're Strips the Dwarf and you want adventurers to keep buying your brew, you're going to make it palatable. You add a little mint extract. It's just good business.
That's a great point. So they drink their minty potion, they get through the crypts with the power of song, and they finally get into the wizard's tower. They find the scroll.
They do. But Jasper, being a bard, gets a little greedy. He can't help himself. While the protagonist is grabbing the levitation scroll, Jasper pockets a small, glowing crystal orb.
Classic bard behavior.
It absolutely is. But the source gives us his motivation, and it's actually quite telling. He's not stealing the orb to sell it for gold. He's stealing it to prove his bravery to the parents of his girlfriend, Sally Farweather.
Ah, so it's a social maneuver.
Exactly. It highlights how for a lot of these characters, adventuring isn't just about enrichment. It's a means to a social and marriage status acceptance in the community. He needs a trophy to show her dad he's not just some useless musician.
So they get the scroll, they get the orb, they get out, they go to the well, and they levitate the cat out, which is just a hilarious visual, right? This wet, angry tabby cat floating in a magical bubble.
Well, I picture it spinning slowly.
And a village celebrate. The little girl is overjoyed. The parents are grateful. And the return on investment, the ROI, isn't the 2 silver pieces.
Not at all.
It's the fact that immediately after this, the town council approaches them and offers them the contract for the bandit raid. The real job.
Exact. They successfully establish their credit, they prove they're competent, that they're willing to take risks, and most importantly, that their morals are aligned with the village's need. That is the economics of the first level. You have to grind the small, unprofitable stuff to get to the big contract.
It's a perfect segue, actually, because now I want to look at the other side of that coin. We've talked about the hero who grinds for reputation. Now let's talk about the hero who gets a world-class reputation they absolutely did not earn. We are going to the Kingdom of Redmont and the tale of Scoot.
Scoot, the accidental hero. This story, I mean, it's less about adventuring and more a case study in imposter syndrome and the sociology of celebrity.
So set the scene for us. Who is this guy, Scoot?
So Scoot is a squire. He is the younger, less impressive brother of Sir Augustus. And Augustus is the archetype. He's the golden boy. Nice, strong, handsome, competent, probably has great teeth.
Right, the hero type.
The hero type. And Scoot is, well, he's Scoot. He's the baggage. He's kind of gawky. The story starts with him being incredibly bored during a lecture on grain tax given by the...
Which, again, I love that detail. It points to the fact that this world runs on administration. Someone has to count the grain. Knighthood isn't all jousting.
Exactly. There's paperwork. But Scoot isn't interested in the logistics of agriculture. He gets bored. He wanders off into the woods to, just slack off. And he stumbles upon a witch's hut.
And this is the inciting incident. This is where everything changes for him.
It is. He walks into the hut, and the scene it's gruesome. The witch is dead on the floor. There are also several dead witch hunters scattered around. It's clear there was a massive magical duel, and basically everyone wiped each other out. A mutual kill.
But Scoot doesn't know that.
He just sees a bunch of bodies, and then, in his infinite grace, he trips over the witch's cat, he slides on a pool of blood on the floor, and he accidentally stabs the corpse of the already dead witch.
It's pure slapstick comedy in the middle of a murder scene. And of course, that is the exact moment a villager happens to walk in.
The timing is impeccable. It's perfect. The villager sees the dead witch, the dead hunters, and Scoot, our hero, standing there panting, holding a bloody sword over the body.
Now, a rational person might ask a few questions.
You would think, but the villager doesn't. The villager needs a story. He immediately sprints back to town screaming a legend. The source quotes him. He stabbed her 17 times. He dodged fireballs from her eyes.
He invents the entire narrative in real time.
And that is the fascinating sociological point, this source. The village needs a hero. They have been living in terror of this witch for years. They need to believe that she was taken down by a powerful protector because that feels safe.
Right. If they knew she just died in some random skirmish with some other people, the world feels chaotic and dangerous. But if Scoot, one of their own, killed her, then the world has order. There are good guys and bad guys.
Precisely. The narrative provides comfort. So Scoot is thrust, completely unwillingly, into the role of Scoot the Witch Slayer. And at first, he leans in. Right?
Well, who wouldn't?
The perks are undeniable. The source lists them out. He gets free pastries from Martyr Sweetbread, the baker. He gets endless admiration from the local girls, Pippa and Penny. He's suddenly the coolest, most important guy in town. It's the seduction of unearned fame.
But then reality set.
Then the burden of expectations comes crashing down.
Right.
Because now that he's the witch slayer, the villagers assume he can solve any problem, especially if it seems magic. They start bringing him all their little issues. And this is where the story pivots from high fantasy to mundane reality.
The comparison I made in my notes is that it's like being a celebrity who plays a doctor on TV, and then suddenly everyone in your neighborhood wants you to diagnose their rash or perform surgery on them.
That's a perfect analogy. It's exactly that pressure. But the funny thing is, the problems they bring him aren't actually magical at all. They just seem that way to the villagers.
Okay, like what?
First, they bring him to a haunted house. The family swears there are ghostly scratching sounds in the walls at night. So Scoot and his brother Augustus go to investigate, expecting a poltergeist. What do they find?
Let me guess. Not a ghost.
A nest of baby raccoons that got in behind the drywall.
And the potato theft. I laughed out loud reading this part of the source material.
The potato theft is brilliant. It's so... A woman, Mrs. Gable, claims her neighbor, Farmer Meg, stole her prize-winning potatoes right out of her garden. She insists she can identify her potatoes by lumps and blemishes.
Now, and has a split down the middle. That's Bartholomew, my prize winner.
It's incredibly petty. It's absurd. But Scoot and Augustus, the heroes of the village, have to solve. This is their job. They investigate, and they find the potatoes hidden in the neighbor's root cell. This isn't an epic quest. It's a property. It's small claims court.
But this is the reality of being a hero in a small rural community. You aren't fighting dragons every day. You are settling arguments between neighbors, so the village doesn't implode from passive aggression.
Exactly. You're a community leader. Yeah. And eventually the guilt of the lie, combined with the pressure of being the go-to raccoon exterminator, it just gets to him. Scoot confessed.
He does. He pivots to reality. He gathers the village and tells them the truth, that he didn't kill the witch, that it was an accident, and the villagers react really...
It is, because they're disappointed, obviously. The myth, the comforting story, is shattered, but they forgive him.
Why do you think that is?
Because in the time he was living the lie, he was doing the actual work. He got rid of the raccoons, he found the stolen potatoes, he even helped his brother organize the town militia to drive off a small band of bandits, the Hollow Men.
He was a competent civil servant.
He proved his value not by slaying a mythical beast, but by being a good neighbor and a practical problem solver. The takeaway is that true hero is often boring. It's administrative, and it's...
I love that. It really grounds the whole concept of the... Okay, let's move from the knights and the squires to the people who actually keep the heroes alive and function. We have this incredible journal from a rural apothecary.
This was my favorite source, hands down. It's so textured. It's like cottagecore meets organic chemistry.
It really does. The journal delights in these cozy, mundane details. It describes the apothecary's breakfast routine, spiced pumpkin mash with cinnamon and cloves, the way the shop is organized with bundles of dried herbs hanging from the rafters, and the big copper alembic always bubbling in the corner.
It paints a picture of a very specific, very skilled lifestyle, but it also highlights that the apothecary is the village's GP, their chemist, and their therapist all rolled. They are the absolute hub, health and well-being.
Let's talk about the chemistry, because the source goes into incredible detail about a specific potion they make, Bowman's Brew.
Right. This is a fascinating case study. The request comes from a man named Martin the Hunt. He's prepping for the Duke's annual boar hunt, and he needs an edge. He basically walks in and asks for a performance-enhancing drug.
So what's in it? Are we talking eye of newt and toe of frog here?
No, and that's what makes it so cool and so believable. It's actual botany. It's herbalism. The base is aquavitae, which is just strong distilled alcohol and honey wine.
Okay, why those?
Well, the alcohol is a fantastic solvent. It's used for extraction to pull the active chemical compounds out of the plant. The honey wine is probably for taste and maybe some quick energy from the sugar. Then you get the active rosemary for focus, botany to calm the nerve, eyebright for vision, ginseng for stamina, and a pinch of saffron for mood.
Wow. When you break it down like that, it sounds less like a magic potion and more like a modern nootropic stack. It's a stimulant cocktail.
It is exactly that. It's essentially a pre-modern, caffeine-free energy designed to heighten sensory perception and steady. And the process isn't just throw it all in a cauldron and stir. The journal is meticulous. It specifies distillation, filtration through cheesecloth, and then letting the mixture marry for 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, letting the flavors and compounds blend and settle. It treats alchemy as a rigorous, repeatable science. It's about chemical reactions and patience, not just magic work.
That's incredible. But the part of the journal that really struck me, the story that stood out, was the poison switch. This story involves a character named Brother Weller.
Brother Weller, the villain of the piece, a truly unpleasant man.
The journal describes him as a creep. He's been harassing a local woman, Eliza Apple. She rejects, so he decides he wants revenge. He comes to the apothecary asking for a weed killer to use in the grave.
But he uses very specific coded language. He keeps talking about wanting something to ruin the growth and wither the beauty of some particularly stubborn weeds.
He's not talking about weed. He wants to destroy Eliza's hair. He wants to buy a chemical that will make her hair fall out so that no one else will find her beautiful. It's incredibly dark and petty.
It is. It's horrifying. But the apothecary, being the center of the town's social network, sees right through him. They know exactly what Weller and do. And this is where that expert insight, the subversive power...
What do? Do they call the bailiff?
No, that would be messy, his word against theirs. Instead, the apothecary agreed him.
But it's not a poison.
It is the exact opposite of a poison. The journal lists the ingredient. The apothecary mixes black walnut hulls, horsetail, nettle root, and rosemary and lavender oil into a...
Okay, for those of us who aren't herbalists, what is that combination actually?
It's basically a high-end, luxury hair conditioning treatment. Black walnut is a natural dye. It darkens hair and enriches the color. Horsetail is packed with silica, which strengthens hair shafts and nails. Nettle and rosemary oil stimulate the scalp and promote growth and thick.
That is absolutely brilliant. So Weller thinks he is buying a chemical to destroy her beauty.
But he's actually paying the apothecary to make her hair more beautiful than ever, and he's the one who's going to sneak into her garden and apply it for her.
He's paying for it and delivering a salon treat. That's incredible.
It's a perfect example of how knowledge power. The apothecary controls the outcome because they understand the materials in a way the client does. It's this silent, safe, and frankly hilarious rebellion against a toxic...
And speaking of things that are a little less toxic, we have to mention the pup cup.
Oh, this was just a lovely little entry.
It really was. We have a customer, a young boy named Asher. The journal notes he's poor, his clothes are patched, he's got a scraped knee, but he comes into the shop to spend the few coppers he has to buy a treat for his dog, Biscuit.
And the apothecary has developed this specific treat. It's called a pup cup. The recipe is in the journal: honey, rolled oat, dried apple, a little bit of mint for breath, and some hard cheese.
It's a veterinary innovation. They're making specialty dogs, but the human connection is what matters.
It is. This boy, Asher, spends his meager earnings on his dog. It just shows this deep emotional bond between the working class and their animal. In a world of monsters and witches and knights, that simple domestic bond...
It really grounds the fantasy in something very human and relatable. Okay, we need to shift gears completely now. We are leaving the cozy, wholesome village apothecary and heading to the sword mount. And this next source reads like a corporate scandal.
Oh, it is. This is Succession meets Dungeons & Dragons. We are looking at the Mud Spring Holler scandal.
The setup is classic on the surface. Dwarves versus goblins. But it's not a war for territory or treasure. It's a zoning dispute.
It's an environmental loss. The dwarves of the Ironhold clan are filing a complaint that their water table is being polluted.
And the source of that pollution is the Mudspring Hollow Resort. And we have to talk about the villain here, the CEO, Green Mudsplatter.
The grand spa mogul.
What a type.
His profile is fat. He's a goblin entrepreneur. The report suggests he realized that the old goblin business model, reading villages, is high risk, low reward. So he rebranded. He pivoted. His slogan, which is plastered everywhere, is soak like a king, pay like a goblin.
It's gentrification. He took a mountain valley with some natural hot springs and turned it into a luxury resort.
Exactly. He's targeting a new, untapped demographic. He realized he didn't have to cater to just monsters. He started marketing to wealthy humans, elves, dragonborn trade. He figured out that luxury is a universal currency. If you offer hot springs, gambling halls, and a tavern called the Steaming Chalice, people will ignore the fact that the owner is a former goblin.
But the luxury is distinctive. The report describes it as tacky luxury, things like neon orange silk sheets on the beds, goblin-made art that is just a little too aggressive for a relaxing spa.
It's nouveau riche goblin aesthetic. It's gaudy. But behind the tackiness, there is a very dark and sophisticated... The massage parlors are actually fronts for information brokering.
How does that?
He's spiking the complimentary drinks with alchemical euphoria agents to loosen the tongues of visiting merchant diplomats. He's recording their secrets and using them for blackmail. It's a massive intelligence gathering operation disguised as a holiday.
And the pollution that the dwarves are complaining about?
That's the other side. To keep the thermal pools unnaturally hot and to create magical steaming effect, they are dumping industrial alchemical agents into the spring. The report calls them alchemists' filth and stonebreaker chemicals. It's toxic runoff, and it's leaking down the mountain and literally dissolving the rock shelf that the dwarven stronghold is built on, and it's an ecological...
So we have an infiltration team sent in to investigate. The source follows a ranger, a monk named Kale, and a druid named Thor. And they go in posing as wealthy tourists looking for a weekend getaway.
And their observations are just priceless. They're trying to blend in, sleeping on these hideous orange sheets, eating the questionable food, listening to the house band. And the music is a really key...
Right, the band is called the Mud Spring Melody.
And they are a goblin string quartet. And they are playing classically trained music.
That stuck out to me, too. It completely challenges this savage goblin stereotype.
Yeah.
We think of goblins as these chaotic creatures, but here they are, playing complex concertos because that's what the market demands.
It shows that culture follows capital. Greed trained these goblins to be classical musicians because it adds to the luxury brand value. It's a business.
But the infiltration doesn't end with a report, the takedown.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a negotiation. It's described as geological warfare.
It is. They have a dinner with Green Mudsplatter, who tries to bribe and then threaten them. He reveals his grand plan to franchise dungeon resorts all over the mountain. And Zork the Druid realizes that diplomacy isn't going to work.
So what does he do?
He doesn't just ask Gree to stop. He uses a vial of stonebreaker, the very same chemical that Gree's resort is using to pollute the mountain against the resort itself.
He targets the foundation of the building.
The science described is brutal. The chemical is an acid that dissolves the mineral binding agents in the stone. The entire resort basically liquefied. The source says it collapses back into the mountain like a palace made of wet sand. It's a total catastrophic wipeout.
And this raises a massive ethical debate in the source material's conclusion. Was this an act of justice, or was it eco-terrorism?
It's incredibly complicated. On one hand, yes, Thork stopped the pollution and saved the dwarven water table and their home, a clear environmental victory. On the other hand, Gree Mudsplatter employed hundreds of goblins. This resort was their livelihood.
For them, it was a legitimate job.
It was a way out of the violent, dead-end tunnel rat lifestyle. By destroying the resort, Thork destroyed an entire local economy. All of those musicians, the cooks, the cleaners, they are now unemployed and desperate.
And desperate, unemployed goblins usually go back to their old business.
Which is raiding, exactly. The economic impact of Thork's heroic act might actually lead to more violence and suffering in the long run. It's a perfect example of how complex these interventions are. There is no simple good guy win here.
That is a heavy thought. Let's move to our final case study, which is also about economics, but maybe a bit more optimistic, or at least more cynical, depending on how you look at it. We're going to the Erikai dungeon and what the source calls the gig economy pivot.
This is my favorite example of adaptability in the face of a failing business model. It really highlights the inflation of the fantasy economy versus stagnation of quest.
So what's the problem? The problem is simple math. We have a party of 3 adventurers. Nicholas, a stoic justicar or paladin, Jerica, a tiefling rogue, and Bink, a gnome wizard.
A classic party comp.
They successfully clear out a dungeon full of goblins. Their mission was to retrieve old Mossback's prized pumpkin, which the goblins had stolen. A pumpkin. They risked their lives for a pumpkin.
A prize-winning pumpkin, to be fair. And the reward for this life-threatening mission, the source is 5 gold, 8 silver, split 3 ways.
That's less than 2 gold a person. You can't live on that. I mean, you certainly can't afford to repair your plate armor or replenish your spell components on that kind of pay.
Exactly. The business model is broken. Being a traditional hero doesn't pay the bills. So they're sitting around, broke, discouraged, and Bink the gnome has an idea. The dungeon is now empty. It's spooky. Halloween is coming up.
Don't tell me.
They decide to pivot. They stop being adventurers and become entertainment entrepreneurs. They turn the dungeon into a Halloween haunted house attraction.
And the economics of this venture must be better.
The economics change instantly and dramatic. They decide to charge an entry fee of 2 gold per person.
Wait, hold on. They got 5 gold total for clearing the entire dungeon of monsters, but they're going to charge 2 gold per ticket for a tour.
That is the power of entertainment versus manual labor. The source does the math. If they get just 80 villagers to show up on opening night, that is 160 gold.
160.
It is a 32-fold, a 3,000% increase in revenue compared to actual life-risking adventuring.
And the setup is genius because they practice what the source calls asset reuse.
I love that term. They don't have to buy props. They use what's already there, the goblin corpses. Well, the source notes they remove the actual corpses for hygiene reasons, which is thoughtful, but they keep the rusty armor. Bink uses a minor animation spell to make the empty armor rattle and turn its head when people pass.
So their overhead is basically 0.
0. They use the rusted goblin weapons, enchanting them to float and clang together.
Yeah.
Bink uses his continual flame spells, but modifies them to burn a spooky green and purple instead of a useful white. They're repurposing their adventuring skills for theatrical effect.
And they each take on a role based on their class skills.
Yes. Jerica, the rogue, uses her skills to set up non-lethal traps nets that fall, false floors that drop you onto a pile of cushions. She uses her stealth to jump out and scare people. Bink, the wizard, creates illusion, a spectral woman wailing, a glowing eye in the throne room, and provides all the sound effects like rattling chains and ghostly groans.
And Nicholas the paladin.
Nicholas is the best part. He's this big, intimidating paladin in massive, shiny, ceremonial armor. His job is to stand perfectly still in a dark alcove, posing as a statue. Then, just as a group of villagers leans in to admire the craftsmanship, he moves. Just a slight turn of the head.
And people lose their minds. The source mentions the Bailiff Hendrick incident. The town's tough-as-nails bailiff apparently shrieked like a child when the statue...
And the villagers love it. They are paying willingly, happily, and this is the deep psychological insight of this source. People want the thrill of danger without the actual, danger. They want to experience the simulation of the adventurer's life, but in a safe, controlled environment.
The source mentions a couple, Marcus and Helen, who are treating it as a romantic date night, just a fun night out for the town.
And the takeaway for our adventurers is profound and a little depressing. They made more money acting as actors of themselves, pretending to be heroes in a scary place, than they did being actual heroes, clearing out that. It's a commentary on the commodification of the adventurer lifestyle.
It really connects all our threads today, doesn't it? You step back and look at all.
It really does. Whether it's Scoot faking a witch kill to gain social status, or Gree Mudsplatter building a luxury goblin spa, or Nicholas and his friends charging admission for a haunted house. Everyone is performing. They're all managing a brand.
The reality of this world, when you scrape away the epic poetry, isn't driven by who swings the hardest sword. It's driven by supply and demand, by reputation management, and by creative problem solving.
The most successful people in these stories weren't the strongest fighters. It was the apothecary, who understood chemistry and human psychology. It was the spa mogul, Gree mudsplatter, who understood branding and market diversity. It was the haunted house organizers, who understood the entertainment.
It really makes you rethink the whole hero's journey. It's less about destiny and divine providence and more about having a solid business strategy.
It absolutely is. And it leaves us, I think, with a final provocative question for you, the listener.
Based on everything we've unpacked today, the risk, the reward, the economics, the sheer grind of it all, if you lived in this world, where would you actually position yourself?
Would you be the adventurer, risking your life in a wet, cold dungeon for 5 gold pieces and a pumpkin? Or would you be the apothecary in your warm shop, selling the 8 silver night vision potions to that adventure?
I think I know my answer. I am taking the potion money all day long.
It's the smart choice. The margins are better, you don't get stabbed, and you get to sleep in a warm bed every night.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the facts behind the fantasy. We'll see you next time.
Stay safe out there.